Hi, friends. Today I want to teach you about something that's so important to a marriage. It's the ability to express compassion towards your partner rather than judgment. Judgment will always lead to resentment, and resentment will rip apart any relationship over time. Resentment leads to the accumulation of negative thoughts and feelings about another person, which can turn a relationship into a toxic relationship, and to reverse it becomes extremely difficult. Truly, this is a case where we could say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I want to tell you about a man who believes he's helping his wife. She says, "That was a weird dream," and he immediately corrects her. "No, dear, you mean it was illogical." He sees himself as a guide, a teacher, a loving husband. But from her perspective, something very different is happening. Each one of these corrections lands like a small, insidious message. You're wrong. You're not good enough. I don't quite approve of how you are. What he calls guidance, she experiences as criticism. What he calls help, she hears as disapproval. Over time, she stops hearing support and begins to hear only judgment. She feels weighed down and not lifted up. If he could slow down, if he could truly read her face, listen to the subtle shifts in her voice, notice a slight drop in her energy, he might begin to understand what he calls help feels to her like rejection. He would see that his intention and the impact of his words are not aligned. And when you strip away compassion, when it is missing, and all that is left is critiqued, even with the best of intentions, it ceases to feel like love. Instead, it begins to feel like cruelty. It drains the life out of the bond instead of strengthening it. Compassion requires the ability to sense what another person is feeling. It's not a vague or mystical skill. It is concrete, observable, and learnable. In my therapy practice, I have found that some men have trouble with compassion. The reason is not that they lack a compassionate heart. Rather, they simply lack the sensors to know what another person is feeling. They do not yet have the inner instruments to notice the tremor in a voice, the hesitation in a sentence, the sadness in a sigh. They have a hard time intuiting what another person is feeling. And not being able to read your partner's feelings is a huge liability. Marriage thrives on positive interactions. It is nourished by moments when you reach out for your spouse and they feel seen, felt, and understood. If a person doesn't know how they impact on the person they are trying to connect with, they're likely to miss the mark or even possibly even hurt them. Imagine an archer who cannot see the target before shooting the arrow. No matter how strong his arm, no matter how fine the bow, the arrow will miss its mark. In a marriage, lacking compassion is a dysfunction, just like the archer who cannot see where he is aiming. The effort may be sincere, but the results can be damaging. On the other hand, resentment rests upon judgment, and judgment is harsh. Judgment is like a knife. It is this and it is not that. Just like when you are using a knife to cut an apple, you cut away the pits and the core and leave the flesh to eat. That is good when dealing with fruit. It is destructive when dealing with human beings. When you approach another human being like that, cutting, sorting, discarding, you cut them up with your judgment. They feel unaccepted and rejected. The relationship begins to taste bitter. What once felt safe now feels dangerous. And when this happens, the relationship turns toxic. It becomes unwanted, and the risk of divorce increases. The home shifts from a place of healing to a place of hurt. Here is the hopeful truth. Because we can alter our thoughts, feelings, and behavior, we can increase our compassion and reduce our judgment. You're not trapped in the way you have always reacted. You are capable of learning to sense instead of slice, to connect instead of condemn. You can notice where your words land and choose to speak differently next time. How exactly to do that will be discussed in another video, but the possibility is already in your hands. Compassion is the ability to sense and respond to another person's feelings. Without it, good intentions feel like criticism, connection weakens, and judgment takes over. This absence fosters resentment, turning relationships cold, harmful, and ultimately at risk of breaking apart. If you want marriage life instead of marriage death, begin by strengthening your compassion and softening your judgment. One choice at a time, you can move your marriage towards life and longevity. Make your home a safe nest for all its inhabitants, where everybody feels loved and cared for. And the secret ingredient to achieving that, you guessed it, compassion. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.